My pecan pie with roasted pecans recipe is easy and delicious. With plenty of brown sugar and no corn syrup, this pie has plenty of nutty flavor. Let's go over the ingredients. You will need 1 stick of unsalted butter, 113 grams, 1 cup of light brown sugar as I measure 240 grams, 1.5 cups of chopped roasted pecans, 180 grams, 2 large eggs, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Although you definitely could buy roasted pecans, I roasted them in the oven by putting them on a pizza pan, spreading them out as best as I could, and then I put them in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, uncovered for 5 minutes, took them out, stirred them, put them back into the oven for another 5 minutes for a total of 10. And then I put them off to the side. You could just use 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt, but I feel like a little bit more salt brings out the flavor of nuts really well. Like I said, this recipe is super easy. All we have to do is melt the butter, mix the ingredients together, pour the filling into the unbaked 9-inch pie shell, and then put the pie into the oven. So I am going to melt the butter in the microwave, and then I'll bring you back. Now that the butter is melted, I can add the other ingredients. The only thing to keep in mind is that you want to add the eggs last. I'll explain why. At first, I'm going to add the sugar, 1 cup of light brown sugar. If you want to, you could do all white or half white, half brown, but I think light brown sugar adds a lot of flavor to pecan pie. Here are the pecans. You want to add the eggs last because the butter is hot, the bowl is hot too, and if you add eggs to hot butter, you might accidentally cook them. So like I said, you just want to add the other ingredients first to help bring down the temperature so that it is safe to add the eggs. And as you can see, my brown sugar is a bit old. I should have broken up the clumps first, but that's okay. Now that the pecans and brown sugar are mixed together, it's safe to add the eggs. Like I said, I am using chopped pecans. You might be asking, Parnell, can I use whole pecans? You can, but I feel like it might make the pie hard to cut. I feel like chopped pecans, even though when you look down at the pie and you don't see those whole pecans, it might not have the look that you want. It's going to be easier to cut. Now for the vanilla and the salt. Together. There, now everything is mixed together. Now all I have to do is pour the filling into my unbaked 9-inch pie shell. Like I said, just gonna pour it into pie shell like this. Pecan pie is one of the easiest pies to make. All you have to do is mix a couple ingredients together, pour them into an unbaked pie shell. You can use store-bought or homemade like I am, and bake. So now this, after I smooth everything out, is going to go into a 350 degree oven, uncovered, for about 45 minutes. I will let you know exactly how long it takes. I just pulled my pecan pie with roasted pecans out of the oven. It was in at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, uncovered, for 45 minutes. 4-5. It looks and smells delicious.
As you can see, this pie turned out picture perfect. The filling had lots of pecans poking through the caramelized brown sugar, and the crust was perfectly golden brown. It smelled just as good as it looked, so I couldn't wait to dig in and give it a try. And when I cut the first slice and took the first bite, I knew that my pecan pie with roasted pecans recipe was a big success because it tasted absolutely delicious. As someone who's interested in Southern cooking, I've made and eaten a lot of pecan pies in my life. But I have to say that this one was without a doubt the best pecan pie that I have ever had in my entire life. I already uploaded a pecan pie recipe here on my channel a couple years ago. It was a very similar recipe made without corn syrup, but I didn't roast the pecans. That one small detail of roasting the pecans before making the filling made a huge difference because this pie was extremely flavorful. It's hard to describe in words, but the flavor of the pecans, it was so strong, it was so deep, it was so rich, it was so comforting that this pie, like I said, was without a doubt the best pecan pie that I have ever had in my entire life. In addition to the depth of flavor, this pie also had a lot of pecans. It had just the right amount to add to the flavor, but without sacrificing that layer of gooey sugar on the bottom that a lot of people love about pecan pie. And now that I'm holding the slice up to the camera, you can see that on the top there was a nice layer of crispy, crunchy, caramelized brown sugar that contrasted nicely with the gooey layer underneath. So in addition to having a good depth of flavor and a good combination of flavors, this pecan pie also had a very pleasing combination of textures. I also thought that this pie had the perfect amount of sweetness. Sometimes pecan pie can be too sweet, but this one was not. I thought it was just perfect. I thought the crust was the perfect complement to the filling, although you could definitely use a store-bought crust or your own homemade crust. My oil and butter recipe was perfect because it had just the right amount of extra butter in the background to complement the filling. Like I've already said, my old-fashioned pecan pie with roasted pecans recipe was absolutely fantastic. It was perfect. I wouldn't change a thing, but there are a couple things to keep in mind. First of all, even though I roasted my pecans on my own, I think you probably could buy them roasted. However, my only concern is that maybe they would be a little too roasted, and once they're put into the pie and baked, maybe they might come out a little overdone. That I'm not sure about. But if you just follow my directions from the beginning of the video and you start with raw, untoasted nuts, I think you'll be fine. It only takes a few extra minutes, but it makes a tremendous difference in the finished product. Also, even though it is nice to be able to look down at a pie and see whole pecans, I recommend using chopped pecans like I did and not the whole nut, because a pie made with whole nuts is going to be a lot harder to cut. Like I said, I love this pie. It was great on its own, but as you can see here, it was also very nice with vanilla ice cream. And I'm sure Cool Whip or whipped cream would be very nice as well. I will definitely be making this pie again, and honestly, I wouldn't change a thing, but if you want to get creative, you could probably experiment with white sugar, dark brown sugar, maple syrup, or maybe even almond extract instead of vanilla. That one I'm really curious about. So if you make this recipe and you use almond extract, let me know how it turns out. Even though pecan pie is usually thought of as a Thanksgiving or Christmas dessert, it's so easy to make and so delicious. I think it would be great at any time of the year. Easter, Mother's Day, 4th of July, Sunday dinner, or just because. If you've never made one of my recipes before, or even if you make them all the time, I highly recommend that you make this old-fashioned pecan pie with roasted pecans recipe because it is absolutely fantastic. And it is a great example of how just one small detail, roasting the pecans, can make a huge difference in taste. If you make this, I know you'll love it, so let me know what you think in the comments section below. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time.